NECA brings the creepy clown back to town. Here's your look at the new NECA toys. This is the It Retro Cloth Pennywise the Clown. 7 young outcasts band together to battle an ancient shape-shifting evil that emerges every 27 years to prey on their town's children. I am seeing some good things with this new Pennywise the Clown. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Before we do that, though, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall the new retro cloth Pennywise dancing clown stands. Don't worry, I'm probably not going to put that all in the video description. I realized quickly how much of a lengthy title that would be. Nonetheless, though, according to my Ultra Measure-Tron 5000, my trusty tape measure of choice, the retro cloth Pennywise stands 8.6 inches in height. After all, these are the retro cloth line. And that in centimeters works out to be 22 centimeters exactly. Bringing in another figure for size comparisons. Mentioning earlier the dancing clown, decided to bring in the dancing clown version of Pennywise. A couple of reasonings why I did this. It's the best contrast of colors. You can see how dark and dingy the colors of the ultimate version are against the more pristine white colors or light gray colors of the retro cloth release. And also one of the reasons why I brought in this long-armed fellow was because he also shows the exact same head portrait to the retro cloth figure that we're going to be having a look at. Somebody I know is yelling in the back of the crowd, no, he doesn't share the exact same head portrait. He does. Just give us some time. You'll see what I mean. While we're also in the habit of doing some size comparisons, let's bring in the Tim Curry retro cloth figure so you can see just how big of a difference there is between the remake version and the retro cloth Tim Curry version of Pennywise. I thought they would have actually been closer in height, but they clearly have made the retro cloth remake Pennywise just a little bit taller than the one that we had looked at before. Let's have a look at the figure's accessories. Retro cloth Pennywise comes included with his one standalone red balloon. Seems more a staple nowadays that we get a balloon of some sort when it comes to a Pennywise. I'm covering over his face, don't worry, we'll more extensively look at that in a second. The balloon itself, as with all the other instances of this occurring, is on a wire. The wire is fed through a pointer finger and thumb of his gloved hand. I have noticed, though, that the wire does sit a little on the loose side, so resulting here in the figure that I have, at least, that the balloon does slide its way frequently down that open hole. I probably could rectify by adding just a little bit of glue on the bottom sections of it so that the wire isn't going to continue to slide down, or you could slightly bend the balloon just so it's not as clear of a path for the wire to slide its way through. And like I said, the balloon does fit into Pennywise's hand. So he does come included with that, but that is pretty much all the accessories other than his swappable head. Now let's have a look at that right now. The swappable head of Pennywise, you can now see what I was talking about, gentleman that was standing in the back thinking you knew more than what you did. He does, in fact, there he is right there, share the exact same head portrait. I must say, though, there's something that's been upgraded to the head portrait because I find it's a much better presentation on the retro cloth release than on the original release. Now, granted, over the time that the two figures have spent separated, they have had the time to go in and kind of tweak the head portraits, and I feel give a better paint scheme. The paint job on this is really quite nice. I kind of also noticed, too, maybe the smaller one just can't execute it as well, but it seems like the eyeballs are a little more lingering down. They're not dead center like this one right here, and it seems almost like he's looking slightly off to the side. A far superior head portrait, if you ask me. Everything about it does feel much better in design than the original one that we had a look at. You see what I mean? You see now, this is why we brought in the Dancing Clown release. So that is the alternate head portrait that comes included with this figure. Showing you very closely what the two head portraits look like. I honestly feel favoring more so just the defaulted head, in all honesty. I mean, both heads are great, but I kind of like the original one, to be all honest. But very much a nice different change. I mean, obviously, NECA has released a lot of Ultimate Pennywise figures over the year or so. And through that, we've gotten ourselves a good handful of interchangeable heads. when it came to the retro cloth release. You got to believe this is a one and done sort of scenario, that this is the head that they ultimately decided to go with. And obviously the heads are too small on the smaller 7-inch figures, that you simply can't accommodate the idea of swapping this out, taking, you know, the smaller heads and putting them on here. It would stand out like a sore thumb. But just to show you how to change out the heads, just grab the torso, pop the head off the ball joint. It's a little bit stubborn because it's a larger ball joint. There we go. And then pop the head that you want to go with. I mean, we only have one other to go with. We've got this one right here. I don't know. I'm looking at the two. I'm kind of favoring this one. What about you guys? Both the head portraits are quite good. Paint is really clean. Very, very clean, I might just say. The cracks are subtle. They're there, but they seem to weigh more heavy on the sculpting and less on paint having to fill in all those cracks. It's the subtlety I like about it that makes it feel like it looks a little bit more like the picture, the film version of Pennywise. Both head sculpts are fantastic, though. Okay, we're going to take this one off. I'm going to put back on the original one because that's ultimately the one that we're going to settle with. At least I'm going to settle with. Yeah, definitely one of the best. I felt this way when we had a look at the original mini-series Retro Cloth Pennywise, the Tim Curry one, just in case anybody wanted clarification on that. Got one little strand here. I'll have to cut that off. But I do feel like there's something to be said for the retro cloth releases where I feel like they're just overall better looking figures. There's nothing necessarily negative when it comes to the original 7-inch variety. But there's something a little bit more endearing for me about these ones being in retro cloth, because you just feel and experience fabric the way fabric should naturally drape. Maybe it's the fact also that they're clowns and creepy and they've got puffs and, you know, ruffled sleeves that I feel translates better to retro cloth, where you're actually using real cloth versus plastic. Plastic is fine and good, and I know there's still obviously the divide where some people really like retro cloth figures like I do, and then some people still favor 7-inch figures. And I know when it's all said and done, I'm more the collector, I feel, of the 7-inch variety. But there's ever instances like this where I feel like the retro cloth release might be the better version. I mean, get a load of the face. The painting around the eyes. The eyes themselves, I find, are creepier on this rendition of Pennywise than the other ones that we had looked at in the past. Even like the smile seems more capturing the fear and creepiness that goes along with this particular character. The paint in the hair is really nice as well. Still more the lighter variety of orange, but I think it works well for this figure. You've got some little areas in which the individual strands of hair are in a more lighter yellow, but for the most part it's all this kind of pumpkin orange that they've decided to go with. One of my takeaways I want to say for this particular figure's head portrait is the fact that they kept it minimal. They didn't feel the need, like I said, to go in and fill those cracks in with paint. That really, I feel, would have ruined this. Keeping it chalk white with only the red in the lips and the yellow in the eyes is really where I feel this head is successful. As for the rest of the body, of course, high praises, I know. For the rest of the body, yes, he does have the ruffled collar, the ruffled sleeves, and the poofier sections of the tops of his shoulders. Kind of like the same way with the Pennywise, the Tim Curry version. I feel so compelled to kind of continue to fluff him up, move things and limbs and legs and arms, but then kind of go back and just fluff things up. He's got his pom-poms running down the front sections here, with the one area of his belt slightly lingering off to the side. I suppose you can, fix that by just adjusting the belt. It's a separate piece after all. This corset-style clown costume, vintage in its design, really, again, translates well to retro cloth. I did notice, like, the sleeves, for example, seem a little on the more tattered side. This is not something, obviously, you would experience if you had the plastic version of this guy. But I think for the fact of what this character is in the film, kind of lends well to the idea that he does have more tattered sleeves. It's probably intentional why they've done it the way that they have. Continuation down, yes, just more fluffing, poofing things out on his legs. You've got the more tighter wrapped fabric around his legs, and then the cuffed bottom sections, not quite sleeves, but the cuffed sections of the bottoms of his pants, right down to more plastic feet. The feet, if you move up the legs, it's not really a sight you want to be seeing, but you can see kind of where the boot stops, and regular retro cloth body is underneath all that. This particular figure does have a hinge, and we'll talk a little bit about that right now, that they are utilizing, Pennywise being no exception now to this, they are utilizing new articulated feet. Thank goodness for that. Just having the single hinge, which was one of the problems with the earlier retro cloth figures, did make them a little bit more difficult to stand. I can quite confidently say I don't have that issue with this particular figure. I mean, you can see how much of an ankle rocker this guy actually possesses, so I'm really happy by that. Peg holes on also the undersides of his feet are now a welcomed addition from the new retro cloth figures, that the older figures didn't have that. And again, I feel like NECA really is listening when it comes to the concerns of the collectors. Things small that they can be changing, like peg holes on the undersides of their feet. Ankle articulation, again, these are things that the older figures didn't possess. I'm really glad the fact that they actually have these now on these newer figures. So let's have a look at this guy's articulation. His head rotates all the way around. It moves up and down. He's basically got a ball joint at the bottom and a ball joint at the top, which basically translates to like a dumbbell ball joint. It really allows for a good range of movement up and down, right down to the real sinister look, the brooding look of Pennywise staring right back at you. Creepy. Something about clowns, really, really creepy. Upper torso ball joint, and now a welcomed addition. The arms hinge outward. Kind of throws you for a loop because you kind of feel like the arms should be up here, but the arms are actually here instead. I feel like they've actually lengthened the neck section so that they can add this additional padding and the ruffles, like I said, and it doesn't make the head look lost in the mix. Like I said, the shoulders are actually stopping right there, right there, right there. And again, that would likely also explain why this particular Pennywise, lots of hairs all over this guy, a lot of little strands of threading, I should say. Probably will trim that up a bit. Or, you know what, I might even just leave it, again, for the nature of this character. But it would explain why he's a little bit taller than the other Tim Curry Pennywise, because, like I said, the other one would have just had the head starting right here. This one is a little bit higher up. Then for the legs split out. They go forward, they go back. There's a swivel on the top cut of the thigh, a single hinge on the knee. I wanted to really say double hinge. I had to stop myself quickly. Ankle rocker, and he also does have articulation hinging up and down. This is a figure really that I guess in a way you could pull off the dancing clown. I mean, it seems so go-to nowadays to do the dancing clown. I think ultimately I'm just going to display this figure with his balloon in his hand. There's very little I dislike about this particular figure. I mean, if the list I had to make, it would be really quite small. If anything, I would say maybe if anything, it would be probably the wire in his hand, the wire that goes through his fingers, is a little looser on this particular figure. The balloon is a little bit more prone to sliding in, kind of down through that whole opening. But from a figure standpoint, I think this one does things that the smaller 7-inch plastic Pennywises of all the ones that we've gotten from NECA Toys, this brings a little extra charm that the other ones didn't possess. And I feel personally, and just my opinion alone, I think the retro cloth line has really been kind of the focal point of where this line has exceeded and surpassed expectations. I feel is with the Pennywise the Clowns. The Tim Curry Pennywise, I think, is a better looking figure than the plastic rendition, and I almost feel the exact same way here with the remake Pennywise as well. In the end, I find myself having the same reaction to the retro cloth Pennywise from the It remake as I did when we had a look at the retro cloth Pennywise from the It miniseries. The best thing that could have happened to these two creepy clowns is the fact that they were turned into retro cloth figures. In the past, we've gotten plastic releases of these guys, 2 of the miniseries and several countless releases of the It remake, with another one slated to be released from Chapter 2. But there's something charming, I find, about the retro cloth figures that plastic sculpting just can't pull off. I love those figures, but there's something much greater with these ones, and there's an appeal to these that I found myself not quite having with the other releases. Having real fabric and the way that real fabric drapes, bunches, and folds itself, you just, again, can't pull that off as successfully in plastic. And I love those other figures, don't get me wrong. But I even find that the head portrait here on the remake Pennywise looks creepier and closer to the film than the ones we've gotten in the 7-inch variety. Again, you add that to the fact that he has real fabric, and you've got yourself quite the hit on your hands. Again, I get the idea that not everybody is going to jump to retro cloth. We sort of have a divide here where people still favor the 7-inch all plastic ultimate releases, and then there's some that enjoy the retro cloth figure releases. I'm sort of in the middle, and there's some that obviously sit in the middle of things as well. I'm not going to completely dismiss picking up 7-inch figures because that's the bread and butter for me. But every once in a while, there's a retro figure coming along, and I'm sounding, I'm sure, like deja vu here. But there's a retro cloth figure that comes around that really impresses me. And so far, what's really impresses me as of late for the retro cloth banner has been both Pennywises. I feel they look better than their plastic counterparts. You agree? You would disagree? I always like reading your comments down below. Did you manage to pick up the new retro cloth Remake Pennywise? Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of this splendid release. I love this figure. Probably the best, I feel, that NECA has released for Pennywise. Bold statement, I know, for all the ones that we've gotten in the past. I still stand by the fact that I think this is the best Pennywise that we've gotten from NECA Toys. Always like reading your comments down below, members of the mob, so certainly weigh in what you guys think of this particular figure. If you are new to this channel and want to join the mob, hit that subscribe button down below, hit that bell notification, and stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole lot of videos coming your way. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.